Joining me now is Research Fellow with the Women's Forum Australia, Stephanie Bastiaan. Stephanie, let's start with a Victorian councillor who's been suspended for 30 days after refusing to apologise for tweets highlighting the harms of gender ideology on women and children on her personal account, mind you. The ABC are calling Melissa Ferguson's tweets anti-trans, and they made sure to emphasise the courage displayed by the councillor who reported her. They made note of other councillors who said Ferguson's offensive and disrespectful tweets, that's a quote, suggested she believed trans people in general are predators perpetrating perversion and abuse and preying on children. She never actually said that, did she, Stephanie? What's the real story here?
Utterly outrageous. So Melissa Ferguson has advocated for women and children for some time under her personal account. There is an activist on Latrobe Council, Councillor Lund, who took offence to some of her commentary, and she's weaponised council processes to punish her and to drag her through this rigmarole in order to silence her.
But surely she doesn't have the power to do that herself. Why has she copped this 30-day suspension if what she said is not offensive? What's the most controversial thing she said?
Well, it's not even about what she said. She was ordered to apologise, and so she repeated verbatim what she was told to say, and they weren't happy about it. They said it wasn't a genuine apology, so it's not even what she said, it's how she said it. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, ratepayers are funding these processes. We've got high cost of living. Latrobe Council put a 3.5% increase on rates, and they're wasting it on silencing people and running their political agendas. It is just outrageous. It is shameful that this has been allowed to happen. The Victorian Ombudsman should be looking into this and wondering and working out how councils are able to weaponise these processes in this way.
Stephanie, what I don't understand is why this is allowed to stand. Surely there's an appeal process if there's been some injustice here. And my worry is that other women are going to be reluctant to speak out because they see someone being punished for stating a belief that they hold on their own personal account.
Look, I think she'll look at her options, but at the end of the day, any sort of legal defence is self-funded. So this is the other insidious aspect of it. These councillors can weaponise these processes, use ratepayer funds to do it as they go through the rigmarole. These processes are there to ensure that councillors behave in certain ways. It's not meant to be used to try and silence your opponent. So if she does take action, she's got a lawyer up. The cost is at her own personal expense. And I think that makes it extremely unfair because, you know, particularly when you're suspended without pay, and it's extraordinary. It's so unjust.
Yeah, that is, I think, something that just does not pass the pub test, that you can be prosecuted at the taxpayer's expense. The person who's taking the action has no risk of costs being awarded against them. But if you want to then defend yourself and appeal that decision, yeah, that is almost setting you up for failure. Now, let's talk about Equality Australia CEO Anna Brown, who seems to have taken a shot at women who stand up for their sex-based rights. At an event at the Free and Equal Human Rights Conference in Sydney last week, she said that we all need to stand with and support trans women.
There's a small minority of activists that are attacking trans women, and I think we just all need to stand in solidarity with Aisha and all trans women.
What's your response to that? Again, I see the overwhelming bulk of the media with the trans activists. I see the corporates, the celebrity class, the activist class. It seems the women who are standing up for women's only spaces are the minority. I think she is right there, that they tend to be a minority and they're attacked when they do take a stand. And yet you've got the head of Equality Australia saying they should effectively be quiet and we should all stand with the trans women.
I know, and she goes on to that clip to call for trans-inclusive feminism. I mean, what is that? That's men embracing feminism. It's just so confusing. But, I mean, Miss Brown is an activist. She is a radical. I mean, some of the things that she said, she told SBS that she thought that minors having to seek parental consent for surgery, gender-affirming surgery, was abhorrent. She is so out of touch, but once again, she's involved in a well-funded organisation. She's pushing ideas that are well and truly out of touch with the rest of Australians. And I think people are starting to wake up, particularly parents. It's no longer about being inclusive and respectful. It's about their girls being harmed. It's women having to deal with rapists, male rapists in prisons. It's girls losing their scholarships and sports. What she stands for, I mean, she is a radical activist and she is out of touch.
But so many people in those positions are from the activist class. We shouldn't be surprised. Before you go, let's go to the US. A trans activist who was guilty of a heinous crime. And there's now a question around whether the FBI tried to hide details of the motives behind the mass shooting she was guilty of. Audrey Hale, who wanted to be called Aidan Hale, killed 3 9-year-old children and 3 adults at a Presbyterian elementary school in March 2023 before being shot and killed by police. Now her manifesto has been revealed, and it shows an obsession with gender ideology and sex and transgender politics, plans to target what she called white privileged people and those who don't believe in transgender rights. Stephanie, this is a tricky one, but there's accusations of particularly the FBI, but also the local police force of trying to hide this information from the public.
Look, I think I have an element of sympathy because there is a surge in, particularly in gun violence, and you don't want these things copied. I think the fact that the media and so many of these issues are weaponised, kids are told they're oppressed, and you're dealing with incredibly vulnerable children who are struggling with deep trauma. Some have very big mental health issues that they need support with. What I think they should be actually releasing is her support networks in the lead up to the shooting. Are there people on the web that are encouraging this sort of violence? I mean, parents have the right to know what is going on, particularly on the web with these communities. How radical is it? This is information that will perhaps help them support their own children who are going through similar things.
Stephanie Bastiaan, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Rita.